A warm welcome to everybody joining us from around the world to today's webinar. It's been a while since our last Lunch and Learn, and we are very happy to be back and to be presenting today. My name is Katharina Stechl. I am the program manager of the Roundtable Human Rights in Tourism. I'll be your moderator for today's session, and I am very excited to be presenting our today's topic. We are thrilled to have you with us as we explore the results of a collaborative human rights impact assessment project in South Africa that focused on mid-range group tourism in Cape Town, Johannesburg, and the Greater Kruger area. This project was actually implemented by the Roundtable Human Rights in Tourism in collaboration with Bread for the World, Tourism Watch, DERTOUR Group, Studiosus Reisen, Kneissl Touristik, and our local facilitation part of Fair Trade Tourism. Such a pleasure to have you on board with us. We want to share some key highlights from the on-site assessment with local stakeholders. We're going to present a very exciting online report. We want to discuss the measures for responsible tourism with regard to this project. And we also want to reflect on what this project means for tourism businesses and their supply chains. With that, I would ask my colleague to go to the next slide. Because before we move to the content, I would like to spare a few words about the Roundtable Human Rights in Tourism in case you are not familiar with us and our session yet. We are a multi-stakeholder initiative promoting human rights due diligence in the tourism sector. Our members actually include tour operators, NGOs, certifiers, academics, and also multipliers. All of them are committed to embedding human rights into tourism business practices. We develop tools, training, projects, and we actually help the industry to understand and act on their responsibilities. With that being said, we are always looking for new members. So if you are interested, just drop us an email. We always like to welcome new members. Everything that we develop at the Roundtable is actually coming straight from the industry and goes back to the industry. So we always interested in broadening the horizon and bringing more voices to the table. So use this as a call to action to reach out to us if you think about joining our organization. With that, I am very pleased to introduce our speakers for today and give you some of the most important details about today's session. As you already see, the session is being recorded, so it will be made available for all of you on our platform, on our website, and on our YouTube channel. So make sure to check out the recording and also share it with your network once it is online. If you were registered to our newsletter, you will directly receive an email from us once the recording is online. That brings me to the next point. Check out our website. I've mentioned all of the great projects that the Roundtable has already developed. We have a lot of very interesting guidelines, tools, and resources on our website. All of them are freely accessible. So use this chance to also go onto our website, and if not done already, also register to our newsletter. Today's webinar has some very important news for us and also for the Roundtable itself. This is why it makes it even more important for us to see what our audience thinks about this session. So we would highly appreciate if you take the time to evaluate today's session after the webinar. My colleague is already going to share the link within the chat. And yeah, you would do us a very, very great favor if you use the chance and fill out a short survey after the webinar. With that being said, I would like to warmly welcome the two speakers that I have with me today. You might know both of them. I'll first introduce my colleague Jara Schreiber, coordinator at the Roundtable Human Rights and Tourism. She has been with us since 2017. holding a degree in cultural studies and a master in sustainable tourism management. Before joining the Roundtable, she worked in a sustainable tourism consultancy and in Madagascar. Most of you hopefully know her. She's my colleague on my site, and today, other than in most of webinars, she has also an active part. And I also like to join from a business side, Johanna Meier, Corporate Responsibility Manager for Human Rights at DERTOUR Group, one of Europe's largest tour operators. Joana previously worked at Rewe Group for 5 years on human rights in purchasing. She has a background in Latin American studies, economics, and ethics, and has lived and worked in Latin America. Both of them have actually been part of the core group, who was also part in the assessment on site. So the three of us have been experts, or are experts on site, and we're part of the assessment. That's why the three of us also have 2 hats today in the session, with being part of the core group and then, of course, also being part of the organizations that we work for. With that being said, I like to hand over to my colleague Jara, and to give an overview over the project. Yeah, Jara, the floor is yours, and I'll bring you into the spotlight.
Thank you, Katja. Welcome everyone to this session. And we're very pleased to introduce the project to you. And before I start, I would say a sincere thank you to all of our project partners that you see on the slide now. There was a core project team, Katja has already mentioned the organizations and the businesses in the core project team. So they were really active from the beginning to the end. They were on site with us and contributed with their network, with their partners, with their knowledge. They showed us the whole supply chain. So these are the very active partners that we had on site. And of course, they also contributed financially so that everything was possible to implement. Also, a big thank you to the local facilitation partner that we had that played a really crucial part in giving the context, giving feedback on our thoughts from outside fair trade tourism. They were really very actively involved before in the planning, but also on site, and also now in the definition of measures and all the discussions that we had. So it was really important for us to have it with implemented with a local organization with all the context. And of course, we had some more supporters from the industry. These are not only Roundtable members, but also different kind of businesses and associations connected to sustainable tourism. So without their contributions, they also really help to support and to implement this project. So we hope that all the results and findings are helpful for the industry. That was really a focus of this project. So I'm going through this project and I hope to have maybe some questions in the end, or if you have any questions, also let us know via the chat. We will have a view on it and try to answer them directly as well. And before I go into this project, I would like to highlight a bit the background where we come from. So in 2017, the Roundtable conducted a first human rights impact assessment in Thailand and Myanmar. And at this time, we parallelly developed an online guidance how to conduct human rights impact assessments as tourism businesses. We follow an internationally acknowledged methodology, which was developed by the Danish Institute for Human Rights. So you see 5 phases that are part of an impact assessment. And this was also the basis for our project now. So we followed these 5 phases from the business scoping to a human rights scoping, the preparation of the assessment, then the actual on-site assessment, which is only, as you see, a small part of the whole project. And then, of course, the analysis and definition of follow-up measures. What was really important for us, or is always important for us for the project and beyond, is really to pay specific attention to the sensitivity of the topic, of course, with a focus on, not having a top-down approach, but really trying to listen to stakeholders, be on site, collaborate, and not bringing any ideas from the outside. We're there to listen to them. Then also, of course, recognizing in this case the strong human rights commitment of South Africa and the strong regulations that are there already. So it's embedded in the constitution and extensive legislation on human rights, and also to have a very specific scope in the project. I will come to this in a minute. So really going deeper than trying to focus on all aspects or human rights issues that are there. And also, to have in the end really practical recommendations for the industry, for tourism businesses that are very concrete and very down to earth, maybe pragmatic, but to really have in the end a result that businesses can work with. So the tourism assessment in South Africa, what we did is to have a look at a classical route of a European tour operator in South Africa. So we used the products of our core project members, and we discussed also with other members, which are like focus areas in South Africa, which are highly relevant for European tourism providers. So we went to Cape Town and the surroundings like the Winelands and Western Cape. We went to Johannesburg, Soweto, Light River Canyon, and then Greater Kruger area. We had different teams. So parts of us went to the northern part, Hotspur area, and another team went to Hazyview area. I have to say that in the definition of a human rights impact assessment, what we did is not a proper, complete human rights impact assessment, because we had a very strong focus of a tourism supply chain on a very specific product and on very specific areas of South Africa. So what we assessed is really risks in this kind of tour that a tour operator provides in this specific areas that we went to. And so it's a limited scope, it's very focused, and still we use this methodology to set up the project and going through the 5 phases. We had a questionnaire developed together with the core project team and Fairtrade Tourism. We used the templates that we have on the website already from the other assessments. And we had like a lot of preliminary discussions with various institutions, organizations working on different human rights risks, like child rights or workers' rights. We had a talk with the South African Human Rights Commission, with ILO, for example. And then we went on site and we had 11 assessment days. And in these days, we had 2 focus group discussions that were facilitated by Fairtrade Tourism. We had 31 consultations with different tourism providers, like destination management companies, activity providers, transport providers, associations, accommodation providers. So we had a lot of one-by-one interviews, or sometimes or mostly in the team of 2. We were trying to talk not only to management, but also to local staff, to different positions, to different stakeholders that are somehow connected to tourism. And in the end, we talked to more than 80 stakeholders on the ground with regard to how tourism impacts their daily life, what are impacts of tourism in their working environment. And also on top, we visited some tourism-related projects like good practices, organizations that are working in the field of sustainable tourism on site. So the key points, what we used is, as I said, the templates that are there on our website, and we try to adapt them to the South African context. We had like the questionnaire that was the basis for our consultations. Of course, we were quite flexible with regard to who we are talking to and what was possible to talk about. So we were not using the templates one by one, but we also were flexible how, like what questions we posed, etc. In the end, we had minutes for every consultation, and we were clustering the topics of all the consultations together. We tried to find overlaps and structured what we found out. This was a lot of discussion, of course, as you can imagine, and we were trying to really break it down to key topics that we identified. And the process was quite intense, but it was really, also very important, also with regard to fair trade tourism and their local perspective, and bringing it all back to the regulations, the legislations that are there. And there's a lot of human rights legislation in South Africa existent, being with the history of the country. So it's a very strong legislation. There is a lot of regulation there that you actually can use also, of course, but you still have to break it down, of course, to the operational context and what is possible for you as a business when operating there. And in the end, of course, we structured the data. We tried to verify gaps or conflicts, like if we found out that people told us different things about a specific topic, we tried to verify it, talking to another organization, for example, or mirroring back with fair trade tourism as a local organization. And of course, we had a lot of discussions in the team to bring it then down to the key issue areas that we defined. And in the end, like the 4 topics that we defined, you see on this slide now, job creation and upskilling, especially for young people, is a big issue. Workers' rights and workers' exploitation, especially of drivers, rangers, and guides. Children's rights is a big topic. There are 2 aspects that are not connected to each other directly, but they are both existent. With regard to child labor, there was a big discussion about how children are integrated in tourism products when visiting cultural performances or dance performances, etc., and how to safeguard children there. And then also the topic of exploitation or sexual exploitation of children in tourism was also mentioned a lot of times, so we wanted to highlight it as well. And then another topic is fair pricing and contract design in the supply chain. That was also discussed a lot with local stakeholders, how to really share the responsibility and how to be able to provide sustainable tourism products at a price that is fair for everyone. And then we identified also some other issues that are not directly, or where the leverage of a single tour operator is not that high, which is community impact, environmental issues, and discrimination in the workplace and gender roles. And this is like what I'm talking about now, are very like the very short version of what we found out, of course. So there is a strong legislation, as I said, and still there are some operational challenges. What we really try to focus on is also, how important it is to build trust with local stakeholders and to have concrete recommendations emerging from these, in these 5 fields now. yeah, so the measures that we develop from this on are on very different levels. So there are individual actions for tour operators, and there are joint projects or with regard to multi-stakeholder approaches that are needed. And I will come to this later, because now I would firstly hand over to Joana, who was part of the assessment team and has another perspective, of course, than we do as a roundtable. So she's representing DERTOUR Group, and which was one of the core project team members and had a very active role in this project.
Thank you very much, Jara. I'm just going to bring myself back to the spotlight for everybody to see. And I'm also already bringing Joana with us to the digital stage. Great to have you with us. So first of all, thank you very much, Jara, for that very clear and insightful overview. I think what you just mentioned with all the numbers definitely shows how intense and how big such a project is. Human rights impact assessments are a main tool with regard to human rights due diligence, but they are quite complex, and they are way too complex for one single tour operator. And that is one of the main reasons why the Roundtable plays such a crucial role in bringing different stakeholders together, and also for conducting projects like this, because it is then a common ground for people to be part of such consultations, to have the initial ideas for such projects. And I am very pleased to also have Joana with us, who was, as mentioned before, also part of the core group. DERTOUR is also a member of the Roundtable for a long time. Jara, I think we need to go one slide behind. There has been some change. Perfect. That's the right slide. Thank you. And with that, Joana, we're just going to talk a little bit about the project itself, as you being one of the core project members and also being on site in person. So as Jara said, that gives us a different perspective, and also, of course, from a business side. So that is very exciting to have. I also already saw some familiar faces within the chat. So if any of you also want to contribute something, then just feel free to use the chat function. And Joana, we now have like around 15 minutes to do a short interview to also get your perspective. And I will just start with maybe explaining from a DERTOUR side what actually motivated you to join this project, and maybe also shed a little light on how the multi-stakeholder approach that the Roundtable is having was actually a part of that.
Yes, so thank you very much, Kata. Also, first of all, really a warm welcome to everybody from my side, and also thank you very much for having me today in this webinar. So yes, of course, I'm really pleased and happy that I can also share some insights and ideas from our perspective as a European tour operator. So regarding your first question, like what motivated us to really take part in this project? So first of all, I think it was the possibility to gain really further insights into our value chains, and also have a really focus on the topic of human rights. So we, for instance, as DERTOUR, we have our own DMC on site. So we have a local DMC in South Africa with 2 offices in Cape Town and in Johannesburg. So we already work a lot on a daily basis, of course, with our colleagues over there. But a project like this gave us the possibility to really have a deep dive on a specific topic, in this case of having a look on human rights in our value chains and in our products over there. So we had the chance to really have a focus on one topic, to work together with our colleagues from the DMC who supported us a lot in this project, and also with a lot of our business partners, to bring all on one table, to get ideas, to have discussions, and to gain further insights. Then regarding the question of the multi-stakeholder approach, for us it was really important and also really valuable that this project from the beginning on was designed as a multi-stakeholder approach, because I'm convinced that such big topics as human rights cannot be solved alone. So it's always really valuable to have a lot of perspectives on a project like this, and also to have a lot of expertise from different stakeholders, like to also have the perspective of civil society, to also have the perspective of local facilitators, and of course, as a lot or more businesses joined the project, also to have the expertise of different businesses here in this project. So this was really, to put it in a nutshell, really valuable that it was designed as a multi-stakeholder approach from the beginning on.
Thanks a lot. And I mean, you also already actually mentioned that when we talk about why you or why DERTOUR, as one of the biggest players in Europe, believes that such collaborations are actually crucial for addressing human rights. You already shed light on the point why it is, even for a big tour operator like DERTOUR, who has a lot of financial and of course also people power resources, why it still has benefits to be in discussion with other stakeholders from either civil society, certifiers, associations, but also smaller tour operators. You also mentioned that briefly. But why do you think these collaborations are also so crucial for addressing human rights challenges in general?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because maybe as I mentioned a little bit before, I think it's the topic is so big that even being a big tour operator, we cannot go there and solve the problem alone. And maybe to give another focus or another spotlight on that topic, if you imagine our value chains, of course, are not just our value chains. So the hotels we are working on, probably some of our competitors are also working on. So I think also if we have a look really on the value chains, on the business partners we have, it also makes absolutely sense then to join forces on a topic like human rights, to on first step maybe explore the challenges together, to have also a mutual understanding of what risks we are facing really on the ground, and then also to of course discuss together and elaborate possible measures together, and I think also maybe to then really get into action together if it makes sense regarding the business partners each of the companies have.
Yeah, thanks for that, Joanna. And I think, especially for the small and medium-sized tour operators who are also joining us today, this can be a really motivational call to see that all of the expertise is actually necessary, and there is no right and wrong when it comes to actually approaching these topics. It's always a joint effort, and I think it also shows kind of the magic of the roundtable, which has the power to also bring people together who might be competitors on the regular market, but then here have the option to work together on, let's call it, the greater good. Talking about small and medium or small and big companies, Joanna, DERTOUR is actually subject to the German Supply Chain Act, to the LKSG, and even though the law doesn't specifically require on-site assessments, why do you still think they are important alongside the required risk analysis and measures that, for example, are explicitly mentioned within the law?
Yeah, I think, thank you for the question. I think at the moment, of course, a lot of at least German companies are also facing a lot all the topics and the obligations that are coming from the German supply chain law. As we are, as DERTOUR Group, are also part of Rewe Group, we definitely fall under the German Supply Chain Act from the beginning of 2023 onwards. We already do a lot regarding our due diligence obligations from the German Supply Chain Act. So, for instance, we conduct abstract risk analysis on a yearly basis that allow us that we gain, first of all, an overview about the risks in all our value chains and all our products. And yes, it's right that on-site assessments are not specifically mandatory from the law. Nonetheless, we think that's a really good plus, because the risk analysis we have, first of all, gives us, as I said before, a good overview on an abstract level. But then having on-site assessments, of course, gives us more information of what is really going on the ground. What are really the human rights risks the people are facing, like every day in our destinations. So I think at the end it can be a good combination in a sense, because it's important to have, yes, statistical information, we need that is crucial, that's the base, and then add more, like, let's say, real information, like from the ground, also having interviews, talking to the people, talking to our business partners, and also seeing a little bit more the real situation. And of course, it's also really important that when we're talking then maybe later on about measures, also see the perspective of the people on site, because usually they also have great ideas, they have great initiatives, and I think that's also really valuable to have that information when then I take it back to Germany and we can elaborate on that further on.
I absolutely agree, and also from a personal note of being part of the core group who also went to South Africa, I think it was so interesting to see how all of the theoretical things that you brought or that we brought with us to South Africa actually came into practice on site, and where our own personal perspective might have also changed, just seeing how the situation is on site, also talking to so many different stakeholders on different levels, talking to suppliers of the partners of the core group, really puts things into perspective. And that is also something that we want to talk about a little bit more into detail right now. So you also took part in the on-site consultations. So in that moment, you were, of course, Joana from DERTOUR, but you were also a colleague of the core group with the other members. So maybe you can take us a little bit on that journey through South Africa, maybe what stood out for you during these visits, or what were a particular insight or moment that stayed with you. Just guide us a little through your memories, and maybe also surprises of that on-site assessment.
Yes, I can do. So I think what stood out the most, and if I have a look on the whole time we have been there, on all the many consultations we had, on the focus group discussions we had, is that the commitment of many of like our business partners or all the stakeholders we have been talking to. So really seeing how, of course, people who are on site are also aware of local problems, of challenges, and all the great, like initiatives, ideas, and projects that are already running. So I remember that a lot of business partners talked about the Mandela Day, and this is like a really special day, and they're running a lot of like social projects. Also, our DMC gave us a little insight on what they're doing on Mandela Day. So I think in general, this was like the impression I took. So all the things that are really going on at the moment. And maybe I can also share one like specific example of one situation that really stayed into my brain or inside me. It was at a consultation we had at a hotel, and then, as Jara said, we talk to some people of the management, and then we also talk to some people of the staff. And I remember that I had the chance to talk to one like wonderful lady working in the hotel, and she said that she had the great chance to just jump in there. She had not a lot of expertise, so in the beginning she was working in the kitchen, just helping in the kitchen, and then she really wanted to get better and get a promotion. So she asked there for her supervisor, and they gave her some trainings, and then she over the years could get better, and now she is has a leading position in housekeeping. And she told me how this made possible that now she can pay a better education for her kids, and that she is so happy that yeah, she could make her career in tourism in that specific hotel. And that showed me that at the end, like a lot of projects we have, or also our local business partners have, they really have an influence, of course, on all the people. And at the end, it's about like people, it's about the futures that can be created. It's about like possibilities of, in this case, like the woman who had then the chance to, yeah, lead a better life and get a better education for her kids. And that is those moments that are like, okay, this is why we are like working for, and this is also like the great possibilities a project like this can have to really see what improvements are still maybe possible if we work together.
Thank you, Joanna, for those reflection and also for this, yeah, very heartwarming anecdote. This is also what I meant before. It's so important to sometimes get off the desk and, yeah, get a feeling for what you are actually doing has an impact. And especially if you have so many big partners on board, like we had with this project, I had the same feeling. It really makes a difference seeing all of the fantastic projects that are also already happening within the country, and then also being able to, yeah, maybe just connect the dots a little and giving more room for, yeah, giving all of these very great projects a platform, seeing how they work. That was one of the biggest rewards probably of the on-site consultations. We come back to you shortly to talk about the measures and what comes next. But I would like for a moment to return to Jara to yeah, introduce the online report. It is the soft launch, and so to say the world premiere of that online report of the impact assessment. And she will explain a little bit how the project team translated the findings of the on-site assessment into concrete measures for responsible practices. So Jara, I bring you back to the virtual stage, and we are very much looking forward for you to dive into the measures.
Yes, thank you. And thanks, Joana, for giving this insight in what we did on site in South Africa. Yeah, I will share some of the measures that we defined on different levels. As I said, there are action steps for tourism businesses and action steps for like a multi-stakeholder approach, what we as a roundtable could initiate maybe with local partners or organizations that we now have contact to, but also maybe connecting different organizations, local organizations, to work further on specific topics. And this is only a brief overview. So of course, there are more insights and there is much more information, like background information on the connected legislation and how we came to these measures that you find online. And I will show you the online report in a minute. But first, I would like to highlight some of the measures that we defined. And this is, of course, not a one-fits-all solution again, but everyone, like every tour operator, needs to see what are my partners on site, how do I work, what products do I offer. But this is like the result of our specific tourism assessment with our core project partners that we had on site. And there are, like, with the defined key issues that we found out during the assessment that we did. It's, for example, an action step to work with local partners on supporting young, qualified, but unexperienced guides. This was one topic that came up in a lot of discussions, that there is a really high unemployment rate in South Africa in general, but specifically with regard to young people. And there are limited opportunities for vocational training in tourism. So a lot of tourism companies already train in-house their people that they need. And at the same time, there was the idea to how to really give young and unexperienced but qualified tourism professionals a chance, and how to integrate them in tourism products. So this
Jara,
was one.
sorry, quickly interrupting. Just maybe you can show us the slide as well, because we are still on the slide of Joana and the interview, and I know that we have something prepared here.
Sorry.
Might be just easier for the audience then to follow these points.
Yes, I have a technical. I have to share again, sorry.
Wonderful.
Okay, now you should
Yes.
see it. Sorry
Perfect.
for that. And so, yeah, as I said, you see a lot of measures now, and I will just briefly go into some of them, and then I will show you the online report where you find all these measures and the descriptions and the background informations to them. So upskilling of young local people was one of the defined key issue areas, and working with local partners on how to support young, qualified but unexperienced guides, how to maybe work on a kind of a project, how to integrate them, or is one of the measures that we defined. Then also establishing responsible working conditions for drivers, rangers, and guides was one of the issues that we defined. And also a measure could then be, for example, to really look at the regulations that are there in South Africa and how you can actually use them on a very pragmatic basis, maybe without building up a lot of burdens for your local partners, because this is something that we don't want to, and that is something that is not feasible in the operational context. So there are like different mechanisms in South Africa with regard to securing workers' rights. This is, for example, a tax clearance letter or a letter of good standing. These are parts of legal requirements, and they give indications on workers' rights and workers' standards. So this is something that is already there and that could be requested on an annual basis, for example, without giving too much action to your local partners. Also to adapting purchasing itineraries with regard to working hours, for example, with regard to rangers or guides that are with a group the whole time, and also to sensitize your local partners on the topic, and also your customers, of course, not to expect that a ranger, for example, is with the group all day and then also with the dinner in the end, or going on several tours in one day. So there are already a lot of regulations that are in place, but as said, sometimes it's just lacking the connection to the operations and maybe also to the sensitivity of what customers expect. So there's a lot of communication topics as well with regard to this issue. We had a lot of discussions about certification and how this could really help to work in a responsible and sustainable way in the destination. So we have fair trade tourism in South Africa, and I'm not saying this only because fair trade tourism was a project partner, but also because this was part of a lot of discussions. Fair trade tourism is certifying in South Africa, and they have a collaboration with Travel Light for tour operators. So in this certification, there are a lot of sustainability topics requested. So a lot of topics that we found out to be relevant in the consultations are already worked on during the certification. At the same time, of course, we recognize that not all tourism businesses and local stakeholders can be certified, and this is nothing that should be obliged on or forced, because there are a lot of sustainable suppliers and organizations and tourism businesses on site that are not certified for different reasons, and still they have a long-term relationship to the tour operators, and this is everything is fine. So we try to approach this topic with saying that maybe it's a good approach to see how you could maybe increase the share of certified local partners per 1 to 3 in a year, or in like when you're developing new tours, have a look at how you could maybe collaborate with certified partners as well, because this is something, it's kind of a first standard where you see that they're already doing well in specific sustainability topics. And then also, of course, integrate and collaborate with local partners and NGOs on child safeguarding topics, how to adapt child rights policies to a local context, because this was also a topic that, of course, a lot of tour operators from Europe have child rights policies, but sometimes they really don't fit to the local context, or are not written in a sensitive way that they can really be used on site, also with regard to sensitizing, for example, stuff in your partner's businesses, like accommodation, etc. And for the multi-stakeholder approach, of course, an impact assessment is only one part of human rights due diligence. It's a very punctual part. And then, of course, there has to be follow-up measures and follow-up communication. And actually, it's just the start for getting active and implementing what we found out. Of course, at the same time, this was a project and there was a budget for the project. So we as the Roundtable, to also manage expectations, are not able to conduct further a lot of more activities on site with regard to this assessment. But we, of course, have now a lot of contacts on site. We have a network. We have ideas who could be approached on site if tourism businesses want to get active with regard to specific measures. So we are there, and we have the contacts now that we are very happy to connect and share these. So still, we are trying to plan joint activities in the form of webinars, or maybe contracting a local organization for having a workshop on specific of like the topics that we defined. We would like to create a central repository of free tourism and hospitality training resources with regard to human rights and sustainability topics, because we found out that there is a lot of information. There are good projects, good trainings available, also free, but a lot of people don't know about them. So it was an idea to create this repository and to really have it locally distributed as well and hosted by a local organization. Also to create further dialogue formats on responsible contracting, for example, to get in touch with local organizations who have a network on site to really connect different kind of stakeholders that we're talking to and who we realized are not talking too much normally to each other, maybe. So this is something that we can still manage, and also how to really use the very the vast local legislation on human rights topics, and how to really use this and bring this to tour operators and to local stakeholders to support them to act accordingly. So, and one very specific topic also was like maybe creating a guidance document template for the tourism industry, for European tour operators, how to act responsibly when you're, for example, integrating a youth choir performance in your product, because there are possibilities that we found out. And this was a really, I mean, it's a complex issue. It's a local yeah, the local context is different than the Western perspective on this in a lot of times. And still, it's a risk for children if they are integrated in tourism products, of course. So to create a guidance which is available for the industry could be one measure. And with this, I'm sharing a view on the online report that we developed, where you find all the issues and topics and measures in there. And I think, let me check. We will share the link. This is an online report, so you find it on the website, and you find the activities, the key finding, the measures in it. You can print the publication if you would like to. I think most of the time, yeah, it's not that timely to print it out as a PDF anymore. So we have it online and you find all the information there. You find like a project overview, the assessment consultation, so everything that I showed in the slides. You find the key findings and key issues that we defined. And also, what is special now is that there are like specific measures that we highlighted as a core project team that are very hands-on, get active measures. So you could see it's a summary, and it's not, it's only some of the measures that really we defined as high impact measures for tour operators. But we really would like to highlight that it's worth reading the whole report and reading all the measures and reading all the background information that you have before downloading this Get Active document. So we have some South African context writing about the background, the specificities of South Africa, cultural and historical, of course. We have a section about legislative frameworks and about tourism development. And then you see the defined measure, the key topics. And also always beyond each of these topics, you see like an overview of the risk factors with regard to this topic in South Africa, some context. You see the connected legal regulations for this topic, so job creation, upskilling, what is there already in South Africa, what legislation you could use or read through as support when planning measures or thinking about how to mitigate risks. Then you have some info on practical challenges. There you find also some, for example, examples on case studies or cases that we realized. And then always you have these possible measures and action steps. So you can go through it and you see like what we found out as a measure and then action steps for tourism business and also for multi-stakeholder. And this is quite, it's extensive. You can read through it. Of course, not all of the measures fit to your company, as said, but it's, I think, a good overview of the findings that we had. And then you also see good practice for the resources. If for the topic we had some ideas and some more background information that we find useful, we also linked it here. And it's the report. So you find the measures that we defined and the key issue areas. And then we also integrated, for example, the itinerary that who is interested in can see where we exactly went to and how the setting was. The project plan of the project, also the briefing for the on-site consultations and the questionnaire for consultations. And this is something that you always also find in the guidance, which is also linked here to conduct impact assessments. So the online tool, how to plan such an assessment. But this is the one that we used for South Africa that was adapted by Fairtrade Tourism. Yes, and with this, I'm handing back to Kata. I think we're at the end already of our time.
Almost, yes.
Almost.
I'll just bring myself back to the spotlight because before we stop, I would like to use the chance to also bring Joana back again into the spotlight once more. Just give me a sec to do so. And in the meantime, I just posted the link in the chat. So this is also a huge step for us, not only for the roundtable, but also for all of the core group members and for everybody who somehow participated within the project. It's the first time, it's more or less the world premiere to sharing this report. So this means a lot to us. And just see it as a soft launch as well. We decided to make this an online report because we also wanted everything not to be set in stone. That gives us the opportunity to also make changes, and we also will make some adaptations with regard to the results and the measures whenever there's something new on the way. And talking about measures, one very brief question to Joana, looking at the time. Was there a measure that surprised you or that you would not have in your mind without the online consultation with a look to the report? So that maybe shows how important the on-site assessment was.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. Maybe to keep it really short, because just a few minutes left. So in general, of course, for us, the next step will also be action step. So we want to, keep the contact to our local business partners we have and see really, really strong together with our local DMC, which are now suitable, impactful, and also feasible measures for us as tour operator to implement in South Africa, together with our DMC. This maybe is in general to now get also the action out of the assessment and the measures. And maybe one measure that I didn't had in mind so much before the assessment was all about the trainings. So we heard a lot that it's training and upskilling, and like for people building a career in hospitality and tourism is really a topic in South Africa, also having a look on the high unemployment rate. So I'm really happy that one of the measures we now had as a result of the impact assessment is the repository, or like the sharing of available trainings. They're already there. And also maybe giving a spotlight again on another project we had with the human rights trainings in tourism. So we also see how the dots connect. And yeah, I think also about training and upskilling is one point that, of course, we had it in mind before. That is really important, but it shows, or it strengthens more when we have been on site, that this was really a topic that has been risen a lot. And I'm happy that we have already an idea on a measure we are going to put in place now.
Thank you for that brief statement, Joanna. With that, we are already at the end. I think that was a very intense ride through that assessment. There is a lot more that could be said, and we hopefully have the time at a different place. I'll just show you this slide with the next steps. Jara, maybe just 1 or 2 sentences from your side, also with regard to the next steps.
Yes, so as said, we are in contact, of course, with all the organizations that we worked with. So we will see how to best bring the project also to the South African project partners and stakeholders, of course. So we would do a webinar with SATSA and Fair Trade Tourism in the autumn, probably, for South African stakeholders, talking about the findings and also discussing the measures. We will, of course, stay in contact with our members, the Roundtable members, how to support them in implementing measures. We will contract a local organization to do this repository. That was one of the key things that will happen soon, that can be shared with South African stakeholders afterwards. And also, of course, to take the findings that we had now and the learnings to develop a assessments in other destinations. And this is also something that we would like to highlight. So we are planning another impact assessment, are in discussion with Roundtable members. So we are thinking about Morocco as a destination. So whoever is interested or wants to learn more, please get in contact with us about this opportunity, how to join maybe, or to support if you're active in Morocco. And then also, of course, we would like to ask you to share this report of this assessment if you're active in South Africa, if you're planning to go to South Africa, spread the word. The idea is to reach as many tourism stakeholders as possible and really, do this, share the information with the industry.
Thanks a lot, Jara. And now we can go to the slides where the presentation anyhow wants to go all the time. We are at the end of the session. A huge thanks to Jara and to Joana for your expertise and for all of you for joining and engaging today. To wrap up, a few calls to action. As mentioned before, please take a moment to evaluate today's webinar using the link that we shared in the chat. Stay informed, subscribe to the newsletter and follow us on social media. Don't miss out our next webinar planned for July, which where we present the new e-learning that Joana also just mentioned. You will receive the invitation for that soon. And with that, as always, the last words are always coming from our guest and our speaker. So with that, once back to you, Joana. And again, thank you very much from our side. Hope to see you for our next session.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Kata. Thank you very much again for having me. And maybe the last word could just be that I would like to encourage also then other tour operators to take part in further human rights impact assessments because they've been really valuable for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.